And by the way, they're not alone. There's lots of people that are forgetting what they're actually about, including the creator of VeggieTales, Phil Vischer, who just recently posted something ridiculous that I wanted to bring to your attention in our final segment, Bible Study with Democrats.
Oh, God of pronouns.
You'll know Phil Vischer perhaps from the hit cartoon VeggieTales. And VeggieTales was, of course, a Christian, moralistic kind of cartoon for kids where vegetables came alive to tell us about all the stories of the Bible and about pirates who don't do anything. So Phil Vischer was the brainchild behind that, and even a voice for one of the guys. I don't remember which one. I think the tomato. But anyway, in any case, that's Phil Vischer. Now, Phil Vischer, after the 90s and since the total evaporation of that once moralistic cartoon for kids, has built a second life for himself, kind of as a Christian deconstructionist, a Christian progressive who is constantly trying to rail against the vile fundamentalist Christians out there who actually believe the Bible. And so in his blissfully unaware state, he has done things like fight Alyssa Childers for standing up for biblical truth and for standing up against Marxism as it invades in Christian circles, and standing up against John Cooper. In his most audacious podcast where he talks about John Cooper, he has the unself-awareness to suggest that John Cooper is some washed up, tired youth band from the 90s. Here's that.
The band Skillet. I like the band Skillet. I actually like their music. The lead singer, John Cooper, is kind of interesting because when you start actually listening to the lyrics of it, very, very kind of hard rock, screamy, but fun music. But he kind of likes to be at war. That's a theme through a lot of Skillet's music, is that we're under attack, we're not giving up, we're not backing down. So it's like 90s youth group music. It's like.
Now, John Cooper, of course, is the lead singer of Skillet, and Phil Vischer, of course, is the creator of a children's cartoon. So if there is any washed up, corny, ridiculous person, it's definitely not John Cooper. John Cooper still in the present, even as old as he is still rocking it out. And Phil Vischer has basically drowned himself in a sea of irrelevance by swimming in the shores of postmodernism. Just recently, he put that on display as he responded to a PragerU post. And that post said this, that men do not wear dresses. Now, Phil Vischer came to everyone's rescue, and he responded this way. Can we wear robes, kilts, capes, tunics, breeches, poofy sleeves like pirates, wigs if powdered? It's hard to keep track of all the rules. Well, I know a lot of things are very hard for people like you, Phil, so let me try to explain. Before I get too deprecating, let me just say this. I do have to give some respect. I got to put some respect on Phil Vischer and just tell him, Phil, I do want to honor you today with an award. You today have won the first place award for missing the point. Congratulations. A lot of hard work went into this, but you earned it. Now, like most progressives, Phil Vischer here thinks he's being thoughtful. And as we say in the South, bless his heart. Progressives are the ones who try to profess that they're not the legalists. They're the real thoughtful people in society. But of course, that's not the truth. Progressives say, well, we maximize love, and you legalists, you minimize love. We maximize love, and you maximize law. But they don't really do that. They maximize superficiality, and they minimize the truth. They do this with gender. See, these leftists and even progressive Christians think that there are over 100 genders. I mean, they write books like, I Am God's Dream. Whatever you identify as today is absolutely what God had intended for you, because all of your feelings and all of your emotions are just right and good with the world. Not only do they pronounce 100 genders, they also give you 100 different ways to identify them with gender pronouns. And if you don't use the right specific gender pronoun, you're a bigot. Of course, all those rules are truly hard to keep up with. And of course, they do the same thing with race. They do things like making sure that you identify somebody as an African American. You must call them by the right title. But then you ask them, well, hey, can white people from South Africa that come to America, can they Can they be African American? No. It can't be white people. It's got to be black people. So no, Egyptians that come from Egypt, even though they're African, they can't be African American. No, when we say African American, this is what we mean. We mean those people who have been disproportionately affected by the transatlantic slave trade, that Euro-American slave trade. Those are the people we're talking about. They need some respect. They need to be honored this way. Well, if that's true, then Barack Obama is not the first African American president, because his father was from Kenya, and people in Kenya were not part of the transatlantic slave trade. So what do we do about that? See, all of these rules, and we start to realize that the people who are absolutely the legalists, who won't acknowledge a simple truth at face value, are people like Phil Vischer. He can't acknowledge the fact that what PragerU was stating was that men not wearing dresses is the simple statement that there is a difference between men and women. Why is it so hard to acknowledge that objective truth anymore? But let me get more substantively to the argument here. The rules are hard to keep up with. Well, the only kind of people who disregard rules are those who hate driving on the right side of the road, those who hate actually creating the meal and using the recipe to do so, and actually hate things like breathing, because all of those rules are just so dizzying, but we also live by them. The people who want to reject rules are often the people who don't understand that a rules-based society is actually a loving society, that the rules keep us within certain boundaries so that we can have healthy relationships and a healthy society. All those pesky rules like thou shalt not kill actually help society become a healthy society. But let's go more substantively to the point here. Biological sex matters. At a time where the left can't even answer basic questions of biology, maybe it would help with some of the confusion if we actually had some Christians that read the Bible and realized that it espouses the importance of sex distinctions. And this is where it gets a little bit pesky for Phil Vischer. The whole problem with him rejecting these ideas, especially the ones found in Scripture, like in Deuteronomy, that men should not wear that which pertains to a woman, is that what is being stated there ultimately is the idea that culture matters. But Phil Vischer wants to wade into the culture wars, but then say that every single Christian that does it outside of him is being bad, and that we don't need to do the culture war thing. We just need to be totally steadfastly dedicated to Christian love and Christian compassion, but we don't need to engage in a world that is on the brink of destruction. We just need to emphasize the positive aspects of Christianity and try to, if at all possible, avoid some of the more pesky or less socially acceptable truths of Christian scripture. But of course, the exact opposite is true. Portions of Scripture, like in Deuteronomy 22 and in Leviticus 19, where it says things like a man should not wear what a woman wears and that you should not mix certain fibers together, actually are all saying the same thing. It's not necessarily specifically an indictment today that you can't wear polyester and wool, which I don't even know what that would look like, but nonetheless, yeah, it's not that. It's only legalistic if you want it to be, because, or I should say this: it's only legalistic if you are ignorant to what the Bible is actually saying. Because what the Bible is actually saying in these passages of Scripture, according to Maimonides, is that there's a difference between the Jews and a difference between the pagan priests of the world. That the reason you don't mix your clothes fibers and the reason you don't wear what women wear is that all these other cultures that worship false gods, they do that, and I want you to be distinct. See, that's what's really going on with the Bible and going on with the Prager Post. The fact that Phil Vischer would even reject that idea shows how little he actually knows about the Bible. It's an indictment against pagan culture and a reaffirmation of the importance of Christians doing things differently and standing up for the truth. It's only a shame that Phil Vischer missed that point, because if he hadn't, he might actually be using his podcast to do more than reject the importance of Supreme Court justices overturning Roe v. Wade, which prior to Trump putting Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court, he was railing against and said it would never happen, but of course it did, and it would keep him from the fallacious and ridiculously overly debunked claims that the Democratic Party of the present is really the Democratic Party that has a history of anti-racism, which of course is not true. They're the most racist party historically and, quite frankly, in the present. Now, he wouldn't have missed those things, and he would have rather affirmed the importance of culture and realized that culture is an important tool that Christians need to use to convey some biblical truths. So, for instance, when we say men and women wear different things, yes, that's some ways predicated upon American culture, but it's also predicated upon a biblical truth. Men are different from women. Surprise! This all comes back to the point of the show at the end of the day, which is this, that there are external enemies. There are sufferings that take place in the world. I don't wish to diminish what just took place in Mississippi and what's taking place in France. They look like they're in some real trouble. It's just merely to suggest this. The best way to fight those is still to fix you, to recognize that there is a God and he created a soul in you, and the best solution for the world is for you to be the best you can be. When did we quit taking Jesus seriously on this passage of Scripture where he says, take the plank out of your own eye? See, most of the time we just stop and say, God doesn't want you to judge. Well, Jesus actually said, don't judge, take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will be able to see clearly before you start going for the sawdust in the eyes of other people. Why don't we take him seriously and realize if we will take the plank out of our eye, then we can help other people? See, by looking at our own heart, we can realize our need for divine help. And then if we get it, we can offer it to other people. But the more as a culture we try to develop safe spaces and echo chambers and false ideologies that really just protect people from actually having to combat the realities and the stark truths of life, the weaker we become. We need suffering, we need difficulty, and we need things to overcome so that we can achieve internally personal growth, and more importantly, so that we can recognize our need for God. If we truly love people, we will want that for them, which is why God is willing to allow suffering in this world, because he can use it for a redemptive purpose, to help you become better than you presently are. Affirmation is one of the most dangerous things you can do for people for that very reason. Just to affirm people where they're at neglects the fact that they might be able to be better, and that there is a journey that you can take towards that better. I just happen to think that's through the journey of Scripture and through God himself. As you take that journey, I would love to hear from you. You can write down in the comments section below. Let me know what you think, and I thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and most importantly, go with God. So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.